Go for the build that requires micro. That's some platinum level thinking right there. Setting up camera location. Rallying to the gas. Take me home, take me home. Okay, this will actually be a build order guide. So I'm taking the gas on 15. This is the Cyclone expand, the one Reaper Cyclone expand. And this is a very solid build in TVT. It's vulnerable to things like proxies, and a very key point is you got to be very careful with your first Reaper because you're not scouting. That's your only unit. It needs to buy enough time for the reactored cyclones to come out. But against any sort of pressure, especially if they expand, you have the potential to put on pressure. But the idea is you get cyclones, which counter almost everything in the early game when you get them out. And you can punish him for moving out, and you can defend most attacks. But I'm not scouting. I'm going for the racks after the gas, after the depot. So you got the 14 depot, 14 gas, 16 racks, 19 orbital. And I'm going to go get the expo here. Going to make sure he can't steal my gas by putting an SCV on hold position there, which actually blocks him from a gas steal. Get the expo on 20. He wants to come back and harass. Now, there is an SCV, so I got to be conscious of the fact he could come in with a Reaper and with an SCV, which could draw some shots away. But I'm going to be getting the second gas on 21 before I get my second depot. That's pretty important because otherwise I don't have the minerals. I'm going to put the Reaper right there and have it hotkeyed. And if you're not comfortable with your reaction time, you can just keep the Reaper, honestly, on the high ground. So from here, I'm just going to flip over. And on it, we're almost to the end of the build. There's a lot of different branches it can go. But this is the basic. It's really not very difficult at all to get to this point. The only things I'm worried about, like if he did a 2-racks Reaper, then honestly I might be dead. On this map, I'm going to move the barracks over here. That'll actually block any Reaper jump points. Going to get a Cyclone. Going to get the orbital. The Cyclone should start on 27 supply. And I should have gotten the second gas a little earlier. Get an orbital down here. And while the first 2 Cyclones are building, I'm building an engineering bay. Because one of the big weaknesses of this build is Cloak Banshee. If he opens straight into Cloak Banshee and I don't have detection, I can just lose. It gets me really far behind. So as the Cyclones are finishing, I'm going to scout with the Reaper. Not until then, because I have no units to even buy any sort of time. But after that point, still queuing up Cyclones here. But I want to find out if he's expanding, what kind of tech he's going for. He has a Reaper himself. He's blocked this off. I'm just going to give this up. Like, if it dies, okay, whatever, fine. And he's doing the same thing. So this, honestly, this is the end of the build order guide because, well, now we're starting to branch off. It does depend on what he's doing. So we see he's doing reactored Cyclone. He's doing the same thing. So the biggest advantage I can get is in upgrades. I want my gases down here. Usually 30 to 35 drones. I mean, SCVs is when you're taking those gases. But I'm going to be looking to, while still building Cyclones, while still consistently building Cyclones, and it's not like this is a rare build, right? Like, this is a pretty common opener, especially at the higher levels. So a lot of the times you'll end up in this Cyclone versus Cyclone war. So I want to, obviously, any advantage I can get here to fight. I'm going to get an armory, though, which will delay a Cyclone by a little bit. but the +1 attack, because Cyclone shoots so fast. But with Cyclones, you got to be very careful. Once the fight starts, it's very difficult to disengage. You got to make sure the fight is not going to go badly before you really get into it. I'm using SCVs to scout because one Cyclone could be the difference between victory and defeat. Gonna camp my Cyclones out over here and try to get a third base as quick as possible. There's still a threat he comes around this side, but we're gonna scout in with this SCV. This is cheaper than using a scan right now, so as soon as the armory finishes, it looks like he's gonna go for a third. He's got his Cyclones. I don't know where they are. He's building turrets. He doesn't know what I'm doing because he didn't get a Reaper Scout. Remember, he should actually know that I'm not going for that. But the SCV made it into the main, which should never happen. But he's got an armory, but it's not upgrading yet. Notice it doesn't have. It's not spinning, which means I have at least a 20-second. If I hit with +1 finishing on the dot, I'm gonna drop a supply depot because I forgot it. If I hit with it finishing at that second, I will have an advantage. I will have, and if I consistently build Cyclones, he can't have more Cyclones. So that's now my objective, is to hit right as +1 is finishing within like a 15-second window. And that might not necessarily kill him, but I'm gonna get a depot out here is another big thing. I've got 2 more factories on the way. You could try to transition. We're at around 10 Cyclones, and even in Cyclone versus Cyclone, this is where I've already got more factories on the way. That's after the armory is a key point, because the upgrades in Cyclone versus Cyclone, if I was up against Bio, I would still want the upgrades, but I'm really looking at getting the factories and maybe a starport. But in Clone versus Clone, in the Clone Wars, and I'm getting tech labs behind this. I'm going to get a second armory. And this SCV is going to move out because I can't get caught out of position. I'm going to scan. Where are your Cyclones? Where are they? Let's find out. I'm narrowing down the options. It looks like he's going to a third, but I'm starting to build a couple tanks as well. There's the mass Cyclone. I mean, he's doing the same thing, but we're going to have that +1 advantage in just a few seconds here. So, and it's not going to last very long. Yeah, get these out here. But every second counts. He has 0-0. I have +1. He's pulling the boys though, so he still doesn't have +1. That's the difference. Like even with the SCVs and even clone numbers, maybe a little bit more. I want to target down his clones, but that's it. Like the upgrades are such a big deal in Cyclone versus Cyclone. Just the amount of extra DPS is insane. It benefits possibly the most from upgrades. So we found the window. And we cut through. But upgrades affect each unit differently, but Cyclones, they affect probably the most in the game. At least at this stage of the match rank. Even though we had all of that, he's not going to leave because he still has the clones. I would be getting, ideally I'd be getting a starport here as well. But yeah, I'm still making some clones, but I have 2 siege tanks. There you go. It's not the fire rate, but like the Cyclone does 6 damage per second armored and 3 to non-armored 10 times a second. So 60 DPS to armored. +1 gives you 70 DPS. You're doing 10 more DPS. I'm not going to do the math on it, but it's a huge difference. So that's just a very safe, stable. Some other tech splits. So up against clone versus clone, it's about the upgrade advantage and making sure you don't get caught out of position. If you're up against marine tank or like bio tank with medevacs, maybe good. 6 clones. Thank you, Potassium. But if you're up against biotank, maybe 6 clones, and then you're thinking about transitioning to tanks and getting Vikings for air control. If you're up against someone who opens with Cloak Banshee, there might be a big window to attack. Like, if you can scout that early, if the Reaper sees it, you want to move out with the clones so the Banshee's forced to stay at home while you build defenses and get more production. Those are the major ones. If he goes for a drop, you should just be ahead. If he goes for an early drop build, then you just have a bunch of cyclones, so you should be able to defend the drop, no matter what's in it, really. But those are the main TVT openers, and that is the build I use because I can't migrate. So hopefully you enjoy. And thanks for watching. How was that for a build order guide, guys? I'll put that on YouTube. Yeah, we're doing it live.